Hello and welcome to Styla Pattern Sew Along. In this video, we will be sewing the Dublin pattern. Let's begin. Constructing the sleeves. Locate the sleeve. For a professional finish, serge the top and bottom raw edges of the sleeve. Do not cut off any fabric while doing so. Fold the bottom raw edge of the sleeve 5/8 of an inch or 1.6 centimeters wrong sides together. Press to create a memory crease. Fold the top raw edge 5/8 of an inch or 1.6 centimeters wrong sides together. Press to create a memory crease. Starting at one side, sew a straight line across the top of the sleeve 1/8 of an inch or 0.3 centimeters away from the finished edge until the other end is reached. This will create a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter casing for the elastic. Using a safety pin or bodkin, thread the elastic through the casing. When the other end of the elastic reaches the elastic casing opening, sew the raw edge of the elastic down. Continue threading the elastic through the casing until it reaches the opposite end of the sleeve opening. Sew the elastic down on both sides. Fold the sleeve in half, right sides together, and align the side edges. Using a stretch stitch or a serger, sew to attach with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Refold the memory crease at the bottom of the sleeve. Top stitch using a 1/8 inch or 0.3 centimeter seam allowance from the finished edge. Leave a 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter opening near the seam to thread the elastic through. Insert the elastic using a safety pin or bodkin. Overlap the ends of the elastic by 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter. Pin or clip to secure. Using a zigzag stitch, sew the ends of the elastic together. Pull the elastic into the casing. Sew the opening closed using a 1/8 inch or 0.3 centimeter seam allowance from the finished edge. Make sure the elastic is gathered evenly. Repeat all these steps with the remaining sleeve. Turn the sleeves right side out and set aside. Constructing the dress bodice. Locate the dress bodice main and dress bodice lining. Lay the back bodice main right side up. Place the front bodice main on top, right sides together. Align the sides and arm curves. Pin or clip the sides of the bodice to hold in place. Sew the sides using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Repeat with the bodice lining. Locate the sleeves. Place the dress bodice main wrong side out. Insert the sleeve into the bodice. Align the sleeve seam with the bodice side seam. Align the arm curve with the sleeve with the arm curve of the bodice right sides together. Pin or clip in place. Align the elastic of the shoulders on the sleeve with the angled section of the bodice. Make sure to match the notch on the bodice with the notch on the sleeve. Repeat for the other sleeve. Baste the sleeves and bodice main together around the circumference of the arm openings. Turn the bodice lining right side out. Insert the bodice lining into the bodice main, right sides together. Keeping the elastic casing flat against the bodice, align the raw edges of the neckline and arm curves. The sleeves will be sandwiched in between the bodice main and the lining. Pin or clip to hold in place. Clear elastic can be used to stabilize the neckline. If using clear elastic, place it around the front and back neckline at a 1:1 ratio. Pin or clip to hold in place. Using a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance and a stretch stitch, sew around the entire top of the bodice, including the arm curves and front and back neckline. If using clear elastic, make sure not to stretch the elastic while sewing. Turn the dress bodice right side out and press well. Constructing the ruffle hem skirt. Place 2 skirt pieces right sides together. Sew at the short sides using a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance and a stretch stitch or serger. Place 2 ruffle pieces right sides together. Sew at one short end only, using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance. Continue sewing the ruffle pieces to create one long strip of fabric. Making sure that none of the ruffle pieces are twisted, place the last 2 short ends right sides together. Sew to attach with a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance and a stretch stitch or serger to create one continuous loop of fabric. Sew 2 rows of gathering stitches between the side seams along the top raw edge of the ruffle using a 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters and a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters seam allowance. Gather the ruffle to half its original size. Keeping the skirt right side out and the ruffle wrong side out, slide the ruffle over the hem of the skirt, right sides together. Pin or clip in place. Distribute the gathers evenly between these points. Sew to attach using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch or 1 cm seam allowance. Attaching the skirt to the bodice. Sew 2 rows of gathering stitches around the top circumference of the skirt using a 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters and a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters seam allowance. Gather the top of the skirt the same width as the bodice. Turn the skirt wrong side out. Insert the bodice into the skirt, right sides together. Align the side seams of the skirt and bodice. Pin or clip in place. Distribute the gathers evenly between these 2 points. Sew to attach using a stretch stitch or serger and a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Turn the dress right side out. Press the waist seam up toward the bodice. Hemming the skirt. For a professional finish, serge the bottom raw edge of the skirt ruffle. Do not cut off any fabric while doing so. Fold the bottom edge of the skirt 5/8 of an inch or 1.6 centimeters wrong sides together. Press and then sew to secure the hem using a stretch stitch or cover stitch. The Dublin dress is now complete. Thank you for sewing along with us at Styla Patterns, and we hope to see you next time.